Well, the majority of New Zealand's sheep and beef farmers do already recognise the benefits of protecting native biodiversity on their land. However, more needs to be done to help them preserve it. This is according to a new survey, and you can read the article in this week's Farmers Weekly, thanks to Colin Williscroft. The study's lead author, Dr Fleur Maseyk, says the Maseyk. I'm going to take that from the top. Maseyk. Sorry, Fleur. I want to make sure I've got it right. Okay. Cool. You guys good? Yeah. Awesome. The majority of New Zealand sheep and beef farmers do already recognise the benefits of protecting native biodiversity on their land. However, more needs to be done to help them preserve it. And this is according to a new survey. You can read more about it in the article in this week's Farmers Weekly, thanks to Colin Williscroft. The study's lead author, Dr Fleur Maseyk, says phone interviews with 500 farmers found only 8% of them thought that there was no benefits to having native biodiversity on the properties. I'm not surprised at all. And as well as identifying the values of benefits in biodiversity on farm, this study also highlighted sticking points that act as barriers. And Dr Fleur joins us now. Welcome to Sarah's Country. Fleur, firstly, let's talk about those barriers. What are they for farmers to be able to identify the values and protect them?
Yeah, so as you said, the farmers definitely identified a lot more advantages to having biodiversity on farm than disadvantages, but they did identify some, and they really do cluster around cost and time.
And of course, the benefits, certainly we all know, but let's talk through some of those that were identified out of farmers' mouths to them in terms of not only themselves, their operation, but in a wider social context.
So what was really surprising about the study was that nearly 50% of the advantages those farmers identified were around social values. And these were things like leaving a legacy for future generations, real feel-good factor, the aesthetic of the farm was mentioned quite a lot, but also really interestingly was that having native biodiversity on farm improved quality of life and well-being, and that was recognised not just for the farmer and their family, but also for their staff.
What about some of those barriers around better access to information? And you do mention about money, but also to knowledge.
Yeah, that did come through, that there was one of the barriers that may prevent undertaking more pro-biodiversity management practice on farm was perhaps a lack of knowledge about quite what to do or when to do it, how to do it, what was important, what to do first even.
What about when it came to capability and resource not only on cost, but the availability of plants, I understand, is in high demand?
Yes, and especially as everyone is trying to do a whole lot more, that is true, that there's some institutional capability and capacity that needs to increase as well to help support our farmers do the good work that they are doing and encourage more to make the shift to undertaking more biodiversity management on farm. Yeah, we did find that that farmers were stacking those financial considerations up against environmental and social considerations, and that was perhaps influencing whether they would undertake more pro-biodiversity management or not.
And when we're talking about access to the cash to be able to do it, really, is cash the only answer in terms of being able to find people to help plant it? And what sort of responses came through and that connection with the rural community and coming together around this?
There's quite a lot of that in that question there, Sarah. I think there was a lot that came through about the community connections when people getting together to do better by their biodiversity on farms, and neighbours helping each other and at catchment level, catchment groups as well. But I think it was quite clear what was coming through. Yes, it did centre on cost, but that did flow into some of that other support needed by farmers, and our studies certainly showed that we need to perhaps have a suite of policy responses to help shift all those barriers, so that we're incentivising and supporting to encourage more of that good stuff.
Did anything come through in terms of farmers not knowing and the uncertainty around regulation changing and being able to get stuck in but not knowing if it was going to get changed on them again?
Actually, concern about policy and regulation came up, but really, very infrequently. And in fact, it came up as an advantage as well, in that doing these works on farm helped get them through some of those policy requirements. So they saw that as an advantage, more so than a disadvantage.
And where to? Sorry.
I was just going to say it's becoming quite clear that thinking about biodiversity is a really useful tool to help improve farm performance across a number of measures, and in doing so helping address a number of the challenges that we're facing, such as impact of climate change and declining biodiversity and increasing resilience and sustainability on farm came through as well. So it is not just seen as a negative of policy requirements around looking after biodiversity, but actually a positive in that it was enabling them to address those issues.
Where does a study like this land in terms of action moving forward?
I think it's really useful to help us get to the heart of what we need to do to encourage and enable more pro-biodiversity management on farm, and what we might need to do to help influence that shift to transitioning to more sustainable farms.
Thank you so much for taking the time to join us. Dr Fleur Maseyk there, and as the study's lead author. As I said, you can catch the rest of the article in this week's Farmers Weekly. Now, this study was first published in the New Zealand Journal of Ecology as part of the Farming and Nature Conservation Project, funded by New Zealand's Biological Heritage National Science Challenge. So seek that out in terms of the full details around the study.
This is Sarah's Country.